Hello, and welcome to the show. Hope you are having a lovely week so far. I'm Sarah, and this is my lovely, beautiful guest, Tiffany Han. She is host of the Raise Your Hand, Say Yes podcast, and she's a life coach who teaches smart, driven women how to become the most remarkable versions of themselves and learn to raise their hands and say yes to all the things they want to do, be, and say without compromising their standards or their sanity. Throughout her life, Tiffany has said yes to super smart things, big things, seemingly impossible things. Hello, sobriety, starting a business and having twins. Oh my God. And along the way, she's learned that the road to a fulfilled life that feels like freedom is paved with bold moves made from deep within our discomfort zones, not within our comfort zones, a vast understanding of ourselves and a communion with our core values. Tiffany lives in northern Colorado with her husband and twin daughters and starts as many dance parties as possible in her spare time. Thank Goddess, because dance parties are what will save us all, really, honestly.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, welcome to the show. Thank you so much. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yay. So tell me about what kind of impact you want to make in the world over the next 5 years.
Yeah, I love thinking about that question. And what I'm most interested in my work, and this has evolved I've been coaching for nearly 10 years now. So this has evolved over the course of the 10 years. I think that what I'm really most interested in now and really thinking about for the next 5 years is to help as many people as possible, like live from that place of their core values and really embrace and access their personal agency to create the world that they want to live in.
Beautiful. Yeah. So how does that line up? So I think about this a lot lately, like manifestation of the world that I want to live in and how that matches up with like a collective manifestation of the world we want to live in.
Yeah. I mean, I think that when you look at it from the place of values, right? When we all get really, really granular and look at our core values, that for 99% of people, I can't say all people, but for most people in this world, we have similar values that we are going to articulate in slightly different ways. And so if we think about all of us collectively working both individually and together to create a world that is reflective of our values, to live lives that are reflective of our values instead of just saying these are our values, but living in a different way. I think that it would be really, really powerful. And, this is where I have to kind of put the asterisk on this, that for those of us who are ambitious and driven and really creative and we want big things, which is probably people who listen to this podcast, it's very, very easy when you hear something like that to think like, but I'm already so overwhelmed. I'm already doing so much already. How can I take on more? And what I really think about and what my work is really focused on is helping people shift how they show up every single day to their lives. And so shifting, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? How do you feel when you go to bed at night? And we start with those really seemingly small, but actually super powerful changes. Because if you are a person who wakes up feeling energetic and excited to start your day and rested, anything is possible, right? And so I'm looking at how can we revolutionize that in order to then create the ripple effect of what's possible from a bigger global standpoint.
Yeah. So it's sort of like once I feel like I have mastered the art of living in alignment with my own truth, then that will ripple out into hopefully a collective intention and truth.
Yeah.
How has your work shifted in the last several months with everything going on in the world?
It has and it hasn't in a really interesting way. I think that I've actually gotten into a deeper communion with why what I do matters and why this work is important and how I can really help people, and seeing the ways that I can affect change and help people affect change in their lives in ways that, again, you may not be able to see it from the outside looking in, but helping people calm their nervous systems, helping people get more sleep, helping people learn how to stop spinning out when they are faced with so much that they can't control. And even within those circumstances, say, what can you control? How can you show up differently? I teach a year-long coaching program. And when all the COVID stuff started, I added a bunch of extra like bonus kind of office hours calls to the course so that people could just come in and get support when they needed. And so many people came and said, I'm so glad that I've been doing this work for months because now I'm able to show up to this in a way that doesn't completely derail me. And it is hard and there is a lot of unknown and we are grappling with so much. And that doesn't change what's happening externally, but I'm able to show up from a different place. And I think that that makes all the difference.
What kind of people do you feel like resonate with you the most?
Yeah, I mean, my podcast is called Raise Your Hand, Say Yes. So I definitely am. The people who are drawn to me, I think, are what I call like the go-getters, the people who are super ambitious, the people who either like saying yes to things or want to say yes to more things. And often what I've found is that I consider this for myself too, that we are people who, if we're not careful, if we're not aware, that we can let our ambition kind of steamroll us and take over everything. And so what often happens is my people will kind of bounce back and forth between burnout and overdrive. And I'm really at a place where one of my goals, and this has been my goal for my life for the past few years, but my goals in helping my clients and my students is helping us not always spend our time going back and forth, but really live in a way where we can balance our ambition with our humanity so that they don't cancel each other out.
Yeah. So tell me about sort of some of these creative endeavors right now and how you reach people organically with your work.
Yeah. So all of my reach is organic at this point because I've not done hardly any paid advertising.
You've got a pretty awesome Instagram following.
Thanks. Yeah. So a few things, and it's kind of built over time. So I started my podcast in 2014 on a complete whim. I was thinking at the time, my daughters were like 4 months old, and I was thinking at the time of starting a video interview series for my blog, which that's back in the day when we blogged 3 times a week, right? And I realized that if I started a podcast, I wouldn't have to get myself dressed, which having new babies was like, oh, that's a no-brainer. So I started my podcast in 2014. And that has been something, I think it was well-timed in that I started it before Serial came out. And so in the States, podcasting it was a thing that some people had heard of, but it wasn't what it is now. And kind of once Serial hit and everyone was like, have you heard of podcast? There's this thing called Serial. It was really fortunate that I could say, I have a podcast. You should listen to it. So I started the podcast in 2014. And then in 2015 and 2018, I did 2-year-long daily posting kind of creative exercises on Instagram. And I would say I was just writing about that in my journal today, thinking I should do that again next year. And part of what was great about it is that it created consistent content. I think the world of Instagram has changed a lot since 2015, right? So it's very, very different. It's a lot more saturated. Stories wasn't around then, right? There's a lot of things I would probably do differently, but those were also great, not only because they helped me grow my audience, but also they connected me with like my own truth and my own ability to tell stories. And I really think that the things that my audience connects most with are me showing up and telling stories and me showing up and talking about things that I've experienced and kind of pulling out learnings from those. So those are probably like 2 of the big things in terms of podcast, newsletter. I started blogging in 2008. I started coaching in 2011. So I have just been at it for a really long time, chipping away. And I think that probably helps a lot too.
No, it sounds like you were way ahead of your time with regard to online marketing.
Yeah.
Amazing. You were ahead of your time even with regard to the profession, the coaching profession. And it sounds like you're extremely, at least when you set your mind to it, you're extremely consistent. So
Yes.
these are like, I mean, this is a recipe for success, to be ahead of the game and to be consistent. How do you stay consistent?
Yeah, I mean, I try to mostly focus on things that I enjoy doing. So as soon as I don't enjoy something, then I figure out what needs to change about it in order to, like, I can't force myself to stay consistent doing something I don't like.
Mm.
And for that reason, I do take, I haven't done a daily Instagram project since 2015. I did it for 2 years. And I do give myself kind of permission to step back from social media. I've pared down. I used to do Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all that. And now I mostly focus on Instagram. I try to, as much as possible, get into a habit of content creation. So I do daily journaling. I try to write every day, things like that. But I will also say, for people who hate creating content, you do not want to follow my model, because I spend so much time creating content, which I love. But sometimes when I look back on my week, I'm like, oh my God, I am, it's where people want to have like a marketing strategy where they just set it and forget it, and it's one and done, and you never have to think about it. I am the complete opposite of that, where I am very hands-on. I am very like, this morning I'm going to write an Instagram post that I'm going to post 15 minutes later. It's not all pre-scheduled. And I've tried doing that a bunch of times, and I find that it just kind of sucks out the magic. So I give myself permission to do it a different way.
So does that mean that you can or cannot delegate some of your marketing efforts to people on a team?
I do delegate some of it. So I work with a copywriter on mostly like sales copy kind of things. And when I'm doing like big launches, I have an operations manager who does Pinterest stuff for me, and she makes graphics for my podcasts and things like that. I've not yet found somebody who I feel like I can trust with my voice on social media, because so much of my business and my marketing is me. I still do all the writing. Like I still do all of that. And so far it's working. One of the things that I've been manifesting in my journals is like, is there somebody who really loves social media who would get like super excited about it and be able to really dig into my voice? I'm certain that person exists. I have not yet found that person. So it's something that I've tried. I've dabbled in before, and it's always kind of felt flat to me. And as soon as, what I know from my business and all the years I've done this is, as soon as something feels flat or forced, my audience doesn't resonate with it. And I'm not in the business of creating content and churning it out just to have something there. Right? I don't want to make placeholder content. I want every single thing that I create, whether it's free or paid or for sales or not, like I want every single thing to land with someone and have them walk away being like, oh, interesting. I'm glad I saw that, or I'm glad I heard that, or I'm glad I opened that email. And so I hold myself to really high standards.
I love it. I mean, I think that perfectionism, I don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good, but I think when it comes to these kinds of things of like really being authentic with your messaging, I think it's so important for at least a lot of us to hold on to that vision of being really deeply, obviously, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like when I write something that feels really resonant, it's almost channeled. And so in order to find somebody who you can delegate to, it's like they need to be tapped into the same channel source frequency that you are. And I think that's possible for you. It's just,
no, I'm certain, like my copywriter that I work with for my sales stuff, like she's the first person that I found where I've been like, this sounds like I wrote it. Right. And part of it is because I have 330 podcast episodes
Exactly.
and,
There's so much to look at for inspiration.
11 years of emails that I've sent and 3,000 Instagram posts. Like, there are pieces of my voice. And so one of the things that I'm thinking about now is how do I simplify marketing, like pare it down a little bit so that I can work on my book? Like, that's really what's pulling me, but I don't want to spend all my time. I don't want to spend all my time creating content for Instagram when there's a book that needs to be out in the world. So that's kind of my next, like, my focus for the fall. I thought it was my focus for the spring, and then COVID, everything changed. And so that's my focus, like, for the fall and beyond, is really get the book written, get the book out there.
Amazing. Well, I'm rooting for you to find somebody to delegate your social media to, so that I know some people. Hit me up if you want some work.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So how do you ensure that what you are creating and the offerings that you create are resonating with your audiences and staying in alignment with those folks? Or do you worry about that?
I do and I don't, right? Because what I know is that every time I create something and I think, this is going to kill on Instagram, it doesn't. And then I feel sad. And then I just get like really, I get really down. So I try really hard to create from a place of, like, again, that kind of that channeling way. Like, I try to really keep the channel open. And what I know is that the best content for me comes when I'm not trying to create content, when I'm just being really present in my life and I get an idea and I'm like, I need to write this down. And so the times when I've done the best on Instagram, specifically, because that's where I spend all of my marketing energy, really, and that's where you get like the most immediate feedback. The times when I've done the best are when I've just done like the consistent daily posting year after year, or when typically in November, I take a month-long Instagram break, and I will still publish content on it using like Planoly to auto post, but I don't open the app at all. Those are the times when my engagement has been the highest, when I've had the highest number of shares and likes and comments and all that.
You're,
and
like,
I think
super unattached to outcome.
When I'm super unattached to outcome, but when I'm creating and using it as a broadcast tool, because if I'm not opening the app, I'm not spending all of my time thinking about it. I'm living my life. And so that's something that I'm trying to figure out how to bring that more into the day-to-day, but also like stories feels important. And currently you can't auto-publish the stories.
I think there's some rich tips coming through that like you're like just on the precipice of getting, because I really like that sort of like staying in creation mode, having it scheduled. You're still authentic to your own voice. You're still writing your own stuff. You have no attachment to what's happening, and you just stay in content creation mode. Maybe the thing is to delegate somebody to do the engagement for you and do the paying attention, and you just content create.
Yeah. Because where I get kind of sucked in and it starts to chip away at me is the like in the scrolling or posting something, and if it doesn't do well, wondering why it didn't, or should I have done something different, and getting in my head. And like when I'm in my head, that's not that channeled place.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally. Well, I'm curious what your next level is and like how you plan to reach and impact even more people over the coming years as you bring this energy more into the world.
I mean, my answer is like, maybe I know and maybe I don't. I don't do well with 5-year plans because I like to give myself bandwidth to change my mind.
Especially these days. Sometimes I say like, what kind of impact do you want to make in the next 5 years? Scratch that, the next 5 freaking days.
Exactly. So with the way that my business is structured right now, I have a year-long class called the Raise Your Hand, Say Yes Inner Circle, which I love, and it's the best. And I work with up to 150 people in that year-long class. And that is something that launches every year in October. So I try to do it around back to school time, and so people can kind of get a jump on the new year. I don't know, right? Like in our industry, everyone talks about scale and growth and how do you get more people in the door and all of that. And I think like, yes. And I'm not certain for my business what that looks like right now, like what that looks like beyond this year-long class with 150 people. I have some ideas, but I also am giving myself permission to not worry about that until the new year, because I need to get this book proposal like hammered out and out into the world. So I don't know. I also feel like in the past I've done a lot of speaking and a lot of traveling and all of that. And like, I don't know what happens next, right? What are the next 2 years look like? What are the next 5 years look like? And I know that when my best ideas and my most powerful ideas for my business show up when I'm out living my life, when I'm out like in it and taking a lot of walks and doing a lot of meditating and journaling and writing and having dance parties and all of that. So I'm really trying to lean into that direction and trust that it will bring me the clarity that I need about next steps.
Yeah. Well, if you ever have an offering that would be amplified with, the Facebook and Instagram ads piece, you know who to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you're doing. And I want to also ask, sort of, given what's going on in the world and the need to stay really grounded and focused with good intentions, what kind of rituals and routines help you really show up aligned, especially now?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds so boring, like lots of sleep. One of my big goals right now is to be in bed by 9:30 on school nights, and that is like self-care is kind of a drag, right? It's really annoying. It is not something that we want to do. No one's like, yeah, it's 9:00. Let me go to bed. But that has probably made one of the biggest differences in my capacity. I'm really building out my capacity. I wear my Fitbit and I try to get 10,000 steps a day. Just because I find that like, if I'm moving my body, I'm in a better rhythm and I'm not as frazzled. I try to meditate. I do morning pages most mornings. So I have like my rituals and my routines, but I also try to allow a lot of grace for, on Saturday morning, we slept in and my girls wanted to snuggle and then we made pancakes and I didn't do my morning pages and like, that's fine. So there's this sort of self-parenting thing. And then also being flexible within the rituals in a way that works for me. And some people can't be flexible. Some people need it to be very rigid and very set. And I am that way with my sobriety, right? Like I do not drink alcohol. And that is something that for me is not I don't invite in flexibility for that because I know that would not serve me. So it's also about that discernment to know what you need, what I need, in order to like show up as my best self.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the definition of self-care, self-love, all these things can vary as much as there are people in the world.
Yeah.
So it's just really being tapped into what your body, your spirit needs. And it sounds like you've got that. And going back to what you said towards the beginning of this conversation, which is about that balance and having that, having the ritual there for you, the ceremony there for you, while also holding the flexibility to be present where you are.
Yeah.
I think that's everything. Tell me how people can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me at tiffanyhan.com is my website. My last name is spelled Han, like Han Solo, H-A-N. I'm on Instagram at the Tiffany Han, and my podcast is called Raise Your Hand, Say Yes. So wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can just search Raise Your Hand, Say Yes or Tiffany Han, and you should find me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It's been a lovely conversation. It's been wonderful to meet you. And I know that my listeners will get a lot of good insight and info from this interview. So
I hope so. Thanks, Sarah. It was great to meet you.
And hope all y'all have a beautiful day. We'll see you next week.